Let me show you something. I'm going to ask this AI agent a simple question about the business it's supposed to know everything about.
Hey there, how can I help? Glass options are available based on commercial requirements. Availability may vary depending on specific needs. For more details, you can check our website.
See that? Completely useless. And this is what 90% of AI chatbots you see in the market nowadays sound like. Because people just dump a website link or a PDF into the knowledge base and just hope for the best. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly the knowledge base setup that I use across my agency's client deployments to make Voiceflow agents actually smart. We're talking about chunking strategies, data formatting, configuration tips and tricks, and even the knowledge base API, so you can do this at scale. And if you're new to this channel and don't know who I am, my name is Edwin and I run an AI agency Legacy AI, and over the past year, we've served more than 52 different clients worldwide. So by the end of this video, you will actually know how to make your AI agent actually smart. Let's get to it. To demonstrate what I mean by that, we can start off by suggesting that we're going to be building an FAQ chatbot, very common use case, for a plumbing company called MrRouter.com. As you can see, the website has a lot of elements, right? There's a lot of images, there's a lot of customer reviews, there's a lot of sections, etc. There's a lot of FAQs. Yeah, it's quite a complicated website. So let's see what happens if we literally just plug in the URL as the knowledge base inside our chatbot. So inside Voiceflow, I've already set up the basics. I've got a global prompt saying you're Mr. Router's virtual assistant on the website. Give us an identity, a personality, and rules. And very simple instruction, just route to one playbook, which is the FAQ playbook. Whenever the customer is asking a question, and I've created a playbook, which is basically a sub-agent inside Voiceflow saying how to handle questions, what to do in emergency situations, and what not to do, etc. And I've selected the knowledge base as a tool. So use this tool when answering any questions about the company, product, services. Again, what I've done in the knowledge base, all I've done is add data source, add the web page. All I did was click on this URL and say import this web pages, right? That's all I did, and I've already done that here. Now, see what happens if I run this and ask it questions. Do you do overtime charge? Now, exactly. So it said, I don't have that specific information on hand, but our team would be there to answer the question. So it doesn't know the answer, but it actually is on the website. So if you go to the website and if you go on one of the FAQs, why should I choose Mr. Router Plumbing? It would say no overtime charges. So again, it should come back as a no because it has the website data as the knowledge base. So what happened here? Why does the AI agent sound quite stupid, not knowing the information it's supposed to be knowing? So the answer is actually, you would need to look at the chunks inside the knowledge base. It has 7 chunks. So how a knowledge base works is that what it does is it takes the information on this website and it tries to divide them into different pieces, like dividing a cake if you want. So it's dividing into 7 separate pieces. The reason being is that you want the AI agent to be able to look at a user's question, do you do any overtime charges, and then search through the knowledge base at these 7 pieces, find the one piece that is the most semantically similar to the question, meaning that it's most similar to what the user is asking in terms of its meaning, and retrieve that one piece that is most similar, that chunk that is most similar, and inject it back to the AI agent and use that to answer any questions the user might have. The problem, however, is that these chunks are all messed up and extremely noisy and polluted. What I mean by that is that it includes the information that is not helpful at all. For example, enter the valid phone. This is probably like one of the customer reviews, like enter valid name. Message and data rates may apply, message frequency varies. We also have information like, oh, you can, by checking this box, you agree to receive these messages. You can then subscribe at any time. Even have the stars for the reviews, etc. You can see it's even in the second chunk with the copyright, etc. So again, these information, not to mention that you can see this website has a lot of image and video data that is completely irrelevant to the knowledge base in terms of answering users' questions. So as you can see, by just simply using the URL, introduces a lot of unnecessary information that confuses the AI agent in actually extracting the useful information in answering the user's questions. So that is why we need to be thinking a little bit more nuanced than simply just, oh, plug in the website URL, plug it into knowledge base, and call it a day, and my AI agent's done. 90% of the time, your AI agent cannot answer very basic questions, right? What's the solution then? Well, to answer that, we actually have a 4-step process that you're supposed to follow whenever you're using knowledge base, not just in Voiceflow, but in any AI agents that you're building. So let's go through them. So there are 4 stages in this pipeline. There is the data sources, chunking strategies, configurations, and the actual query pipeline. So let's start with the most important part, which is the data sources. For any AI systems that you guys are building, the most important part that you need to watch out for is always the data. Because if you have corrupted data or bad data input, you will always have a bad output. This is what we call garbage in, garbage out. The worse the information you feed in, the worse the output of the AI agent is going to be. So let's look at what are the data sources possible to plug in as a knowledge base for an AI agent. The first one was what we call a URL or a sitemap. So again, this is literally what we talked about last time. Like for Mr. Router, it will literally be the website, which is the website link. The website link, the advantage is quite simple. So it only really works if the website is kind of text, the information is kind of cleaned and is mostly text heavy rather than visual heavy. Because again, AI agent normally within the knowledge base won't be able to look at these images, right? So it only really works for simple text pages only. The next kind of document is kind of the obvious one, is like the PDF, documents, and TXT, which is the text file. For Voiceflow specifically, maximum is 10 megabytes. So you will need to extract the text and disregard the less useful information if it's larger size, right? Just keep that in mind. The third one that they just added in is kind of a CSV or a Excel format for structured data. So again, it will look like a spreadsheet. So you have rows and columns. Usually it's useful for structured data, like a product catalog, for example, your e-commerce store. So it's great for, again, structured data. The next one that you have is essentially plain text. Rather than uploading a document, you would just copy paste a piece of text into that. So it's most useful for things like FAQs, contact information, or quick facts about the company that you want the agent to have. And lastly, Voiceflow also supports Zendesk and direct Shopify integration. So you can auto-sync between Zendesk and Shopify product catalog or customer support ticket information inside Voiceflow agents. Now, the last one I'm going to cover in a little bit is what we call the API, the knowledge base API. I'll cover that in a little bit. No matter which data source you're using, there's one rule that you need to always remember, which is to always use markdown headers. So they look a little bit like this. It's kind of like hashtag. Now, the reason why is because it's been proven that if your knowledge base material contains markdown, meaning you have clearly indicate in the document where's the headings, where the subheadings, where the different topics, etc., this will actually increases the accuracy for retrieval of fact information about the agent. The second thing is using bullet point for listing. So rather than just one big chunk of information, as you can see here, you use bullet points to clearly identify the different topics that you want the AI agent to know. And you should always have clear sections per topic, again, using the markdown headers, we cover this. And the last thing is remove the navigation of footer noise. So that you can see there's a lot of footer noise here, right? So like it's like the copyright information or even the stars for the customer reviews. These are noise information that you don't actually need. So you need to remove them. Another thing is don't just dump raw HTML files like this, right? You should always format it. Don't include images or URLs as text because it's not going to be get read by the AI agent, and don't exceed 10 megabytes per file. This is specifically for Voiceflow, right? So these are the formatting rules that you should always be aware of. You need to always clean the data before plugging it into the knowledge base. So let's actually see practically what this actually looks like. So what I've done here essentially is I ask Claude Code to provide me 4 different documents that's nicely formatted in Markdown. The first one, service. You can see it has the plumbing services. It has the different categories of plumbing services like the emergency plumbing, drain cleaning, water heater services, pipe repair and replacement, and it has bullet points summary of the information of each services that the company provides, right? So you can go back to the website, you can see that if you scroll down a little bit, you can see the different services, residential, commercial. You can have within the plumbing, you can see the different types of the plumbing, and you can click on it and you will see a little bit more information about that plumbing. What this actually does, this approach is essentially you go through the website data, you look through the actual information that is actually useful or you want the customers to know, and you organize them into nicely formatted documents or data rather than just plugging it in raw. You can ask AI to help you with it. It kind of fastens things up. So I ask Claude Code to do it for me. You have like services, you have like scheduling service areas, pricing and guarantees, and also common FAQs, which as you can see, it's here, right? This kind of common FAQs. Again, it's nicely formatted in the question answer pair, right? Rather than just raw website data. So the takeaway for this is it's always worth it to reformat, clean your data, and reorganize them into nice formatted documents. So what I'm going to do now actually is going to just copy paste this nicely formatted documents into the knowledge base. So I just copy this, and then all I have to do is I just add a data source I'm going to add in plain text for now. I'm just going to paste this in. You can see the nice formatted markdown with the hashtag. And from here, I can just click import. So that's the first thing about the data. The data is done. But if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that there's an option to add LLM chunking strategy. So what does that actually mean? Now let's go to the second pipeline. So we clean the data and now we need to think about strategies. So what are chunking strategies? Again, if you remember what I said earlier, knowledge base is all about dividing long documents or data, unstructured data like text, into different sections, like different slices of pizza, if you will. But there are different strategies to make it more accurate. The first one in Voiceflow, there are 5 built-in strategies. The first one is called smart chunking, meaning using a large language model like ChatGPT, it will split your text by logical topics automatically. For example, if you have like let's say in this use case, you will have the plumbing services. What it will do is it will automatically split your text by the different types of plumbing services that you will. So it will automatically divide into emergency plumbing, drain cleaning, water heater services, pipe replacement, etc. So this is most useful if your document has multiple different topics. Like for example, if you have a website content or product page and you divide it by different products, it's really useful to turn this smart chunking on. So Voiceflow would do that automatically. The second one is what we call FAQ optimization. So what this do is the LLM, the large language model, will generate sample questions per chunk. So for per pieces of information that is dividing, it will generate sample questions. For example, if you upload this plumbing services document into the knowledge base, the ChatGPT will automatically generate some sample questions and some sample answers inside the chunk as well. So it will most useful if your use case is an FAQ chatbot use case, right? Like a help center, of customer support center, or support document. The reason why is because if the user asks similar questions, then it's already in the knowledge base with an accurate answer, and the AI agents can just literally retrieve that question answer pair and use that to answer the questions of the users, essentially. If you pair that with product catalog CSV, like an Excel file, it'll be even more useful. So for CSV, by the way, I will mention that in a little bit. The third one is HTML and noise removal. So this is especially useful for website. As you can see, there are filters I've shown you, remember in the chunks that I've shown you, you can see that there's a lot of noises, right? So this is exactly what this chunking strategy is for. It's using the large language model to remove boilerplates, useless information, images, filters, etc. And it removes any what we call junk chunks, so like rubbish information or random URLs, etc. and only keep the useful information. And it's really useful if you're using like kind of like a website data. The fourth one is adding topic headers. So what this does is actually for each section, it will generate a context summary of each section and it will add that inside the chunk. So what this actually does is you have a really long document that's like big customer support playbook that has like hundreds of pages without a clear structure. The large language model itself will organize them into different sections. And for each section, it will generate a concise summary. So the AI agent will be able to basically split out the knowledge base a little bit better, and it will see the structure a little bit better as well. So it's most useful for policy documents or long reports. And the last one is kind of the summarize use case, where like you just basically summarize each section to just key points. So if you have a very dense research document, legal document, or long reports, and you don't want the LLM to know absolutely everything, you just want it to know the gist of it, like the actual useful information, then the juice, and then you can apply this chunking strategy and will just give you the useful stuff. So what I recommend usually is that for website, go for the HTML removal and the smart chunking, so remove the noise and organize it into logical topics. For the product CSV, like a product catalog from Shopify, I recommend turning on FAQ optimization, so generate sample question answer pairs about the product information. For long support document, I would recommend turning on smart chunking, so you can organize it into topics, and topic headers, so it has like a context summary above the sections. For the long reports, I would recommend have both summarized and topic headers, so it would just contains the concise and juicy information you actually need, right? So yeah, this is kind of the theory behind the 5 different chunking strategies. And let me show you a little bit more practical what we can do with it. So here I've actually got a sample spreadsheet for the different items or different services that the Mr. Router provides. It has the item details. So like, for example, available 24/7, a little bit more product information, got even more product items, right? What is it used for? And the relevant links about this item for the agent to share. So these are the URL that can send it to the user, so the user have that information if they want to learn a little bit more, etc. And there's images, which I'm not going to include in this case. Now, the way you do that in Voiceflow, if you click on data source, and if you click on CSV, especially for product data, there is actually a template that you can download. So you can just download this template here, which is is the one provided in Voiceflow, which is the number of items, the item details, more item details, the relevant links about this item for agent to share, as well as the image URL if you're running a, let's say, e-commerce store and you want the agent to share. So in general, just ask AI or Claude to fill this in for you for your product information. Usually it will be good enough. And after that, all you have to do is import the CSV here. And again, I would recommend turning on the FAQ optimization for the product catalog. As you can see, after you uploaded it, you can see there's 5 different chunks. So one chunk corresponds to each row, will be the first row, which is the emergency plumbing. The second row will be about drain cleaning. The third row would be sewer line repair, etc. Right. And now we move on to the configuration. It's all good now that we have uploaded everything to knowledge base. We have the correct data, and also we have the correct chunking strategy, so it's more optimized for RAG. Now we need to then on the agent side have the proper configuration. So how do we do that in Voiceflow? Well, if you within each playbook, you actually have the option to go to the knowledge base, and here is where you can click on advanced query settings and choose different options. So you can say if the tool is called the user's last utterance is used as a query. So let's say usually how it happens is if the user asks the questions and the agent decides to use a knowledge base as a tool, the user's question is passed as the query to search for the knowledge base to search for the most correct answer. And here you can kind of limit how many chunks, meaning how many pieces will return in this search. By default, it's always 3 chunks, right? This is kind of the default. However, for simple FAQs, again, I'll recommend 2 to 3 chunks. But if you have like complex product catalog, there's like hundreds of different catalogs, I recommend at least having 5 to 7 chunks so that it covers wide enough, like broad enough for enough topics. Like just set it to 5 to 7. You can always have query rewriting. Again, what this really does is that in here, within the advanced query, rather than passing the last utterance, which is the user's questions, you can just have a very simple prompt to be like, change the user's, say, utterance into a question ready for RAG. RAG just stands for retrieval augmented generation, which is actually what the knowledge base search is all about. So I'll just turn it into the prompt, and this will create a question that is more accurate for specific semantic search. So this is what I meant by query writing. So we go from it won't let me log in into a more accurate term, which is login error troubleshooting, which increases the actually retrieval accuracy boost. And kind of one of the more important things as well is that it can do metadata filtering. What that means is that within each document, this is especially useful if you have like hundreds of documents, right? What you can do is that within each data source, you can add the metadata and give it a tag. For example, this is about services, right? So I can just put in the key, which is the type of the document, and you can have a value. The value for this is going to be services, right? Because this data source is about the services of the company, right? And similarly, if I have something similar, let's say I have this pricing information, which is different from services, what I can do is click on add data, I'm clicking on plain text, paste this in, and for this, I'm just going to put on FAQ optimization for now. And I can put in a metadata filter, and I can just be like, the type in this case would be pricing, right? So I'm just going to click on import. And now you can see within the knowledge base, it has 2 different tags. The type is pricing and the type for here is services, right? Now, if you go back to the playbook, to the agent, inside the knowledge base tool, what you can do is you can click on metadata filtering, and with the type either pricing or services. And you can ask the AI agent to come up with what the metadata filtering is. So for example, in this case, the element description is if the user is asking for services related questions, services. So what this does is if the user asking for pricing information, the type will have a value pricing. Now it's going to look at the knowledge base and see which one has type equals to pricing. Only this document, the latest one that I upload, has pricing in it. That means it won't actually look at this document, which is just services, because it's not related to what the user is asking. So by using metadata filtering, you can be very specific which data source you want the AI agent to look and search for, without searching for unnecessary or unrelated data source and therefore pollute, or even worse, make the answer inaccurate. This is what metadata filtering is useful for. This is very important, especially for different products. You can even tag dogs with different categories. For example, if you have like product line, region, category, so you can be very specific. If the user is asking, do you have any Windows support in the UK? It will only look for documents that has the tag product line Windows, region UK, and category support. You can add in here multiple metadata, key and value as much as you want. So you can be as specific in your search as possible. Next one is the auto refresh, meaning that if you're using website as your data source, the URLs could change. For example, if your team uploaded the pricing information, you change the pricing every week, for example, you don't want to upload it over and over and over again. What you actually want to do is that inside here, you can have the data source, let's say website, and then just copy this website again into the knowledge base. You can actually change the refresh rate to, let's say, weekly, meaning the data source, aka the website, will refresh every week. So if you change your prices every week, it will always have the most up-to-date pricing information inside the knowledge base, right? This is really powerful if your website data is always changing. And the last one is source URLs. If you're having a customer support bot, for example, you can enable this inside the agent so that the AI agent will always show the customer the references to the customer support document so they can go look it up. To do that, it's very simple. All you have to do is go back to the agent, go to the knowledge base, and click on show source URL. So you can see how many source URLs you found. You can have like 2 source per response, right? It doesn't really matter. So yeah, this is the configuration side of things and what you can do in order to optimize how the agent is responding, right? And to summarize everything, this is what the query pipeline actually looks like. If the user asks, do you have any glass for commercial buildings? First of all, it will do the query rewriting to make it a more accurate question, meaning commercial building class product specifications. Then it will look through the knowledge base to search for an answer. Now, if you have metadata filtering, it will search for category equals to commercial rather than residential, right? If you go back to the here, you can see there's a residential and commercial. So you would just look at the right one, let's say commercial, it will skip the residential dog, and then it will retrieve the top 5 chunks, right? You set the limit to 5, so you retrieve 5 pieces of this information in the knowledge base. The LM get those chunks and try to generate an answer from these chunks and generate an answer, and that's how it's able to generate a smart answer. So it will know about its product information. So this pipeline is you need to have clean data to summarize, the right chunking strategy, the proper configuration inside the AI agent, and then you will have smart, accurate answers out for your customers. So yeah, this is actually how you would need to use the knowledge bases. Now, the last thing I do want to mention is something called the knowledge base API. By default, you usually upload knowledge base inside the Voiceflow agent using the UI here, right? You just add data source and you click. But what if you have like 1,000, 2,000 documents that you want to upload? Then you're just going to be clicking buttons like forever, right? To solve this issue, you can do this programmatically, aka using Python scripts and programs to automate this entire process. As an example, this is what a Python script actually looks like. So this is actually uploads into the Voiceflow document. So it's using a library called PyMu PDF4LM. It's actually really useful in Python library to be able to extract information from a PDF into text data, again, the data cleaning step. And all you do is basically load in the Voiceflow API key, which again, you can get it from, if you go to settings, you go to API keys, and you can go ahead and just copy this key and just paste it inside here. You also need the base URL, which is the real-time API, voiceflow.com. Just basically copy this specific link, and you have the base URL and the runtime URL, meaning this is actually the one that queries the database, right? If you're using queries, by the way, you don't have to just use the agent UI inside Voiceflow. You can also do this programmatically using its API within here, right? Some of this could be a little bit complicated. Again, this is just some of the functions to do a lot of these cleaning steps, but the one that I want your attention to is this function, which is a upload PDF function. So it first extract the text. Again, if you want, you can also ask Claude to generate the script for you as well. That's absolutely fine. And then it has the API key, and then it's trying to do the API upload, right, by using a post URL request. You have the base URL, you have the right headers, you also have the file, which is in your folder. And then you basically try to upload this, right? You can see here, trying to update the metadata with the product category tag inside here. This is actually how you would do this programmatically, etc. Again, you don't have to know exactly how this works. You can just ask Claude, but I'm just telling you there's also a way to do this if you're technical or if you want to do this faster, programmatically do this with scripts. And for those of you who are interested in this, you can find more information within the docs.voiceflow.com, knowledge base overview. You can search for the knowledge base API and it has all the different endpoints that you have. For example, you can upload document. This is actually how you would do it. And it has full documentation on how you're able to achieve that. But yeah, this is how you would actually think about setting up a good knowledge base within Voiceflow to get your AI agent smart and give accurate answers that don't suck to customers. And if you're a business owner and you want to set something similar for your business, you're more than welcome to use the link in the description to book a free discovery call with us. And we've built agents like this for 52 different clients worldwide already. And if you enjoy this kind of content, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.